The ache in my right shoulder was the first thing. A dull, thrumming kind of pain, deep in the joint. I shifted, trying to get comfortable, but it just lingered. It wasn't a sharp hurt, more like an old wound that had never quite healed, a phantom throb beneath the skin. I blinked, the morning light dim through the blinds, and pushed myself up. My mattress creaked. "Probably just slept on it fine," I muttered, rubbing the spot. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the carpet cool against my bare feet. Or I pulled something at the gym yesterday. I tried to remember a specific lift, a moment of strain, but nothing came to mind. My body just felt heavy, as if I'd been working for a week straight without a break. Downstairs, the kitchen was already filling with the smell of brewing coffee. Maria was an early riser, always had been. I found her humming softly as she moved between the countertop and the coffee maker, her back to me. The world felt normal, so normal it was almost like a slap across the face. I grabbed a mug from the cupboard, the ceramic cool in my hand. Then it happened. The rich, earthy smell of the brewing coffee vanished. In its place, something metallic, almost coppery, mixed with a burnt chemical tang, like old blood and the lingering reek of an electrical fire. I could taste it too, a bitter grit on my tongue that made my throat tighten. My eyes stung. A fragment of an image flickered behind my eyelids. A room, not my kitchen, but something ruined, walls crumbling, lit by a sickly orange light. The air was thick with ash, and the sounds, no. I jolted, my hand shaking, and slopped a bit of hot coffee over the rim of the mug. It stung my fingers, pulling me back. Maria turned, holding a plate of eggs. "You okay, Alex?" she asked, a small crease forming between her eyebrows. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep, shuddering breath. The smell of coffee was back. Just coffee. Regular, comforting coffee. "Fine," I managed, my voice a little rougher than I intended. "Just tired, I guess. Spilled some." I put the mug down, my hand still trembling slightly. My stomach gave a strange lurch, a hollow ache, as if I hadn't eaten anything in days, weeks maybe. Jesus. Maria just gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher. A quick glance, a flicker of something. I told myself it was just concern. She put the plate on the table. "Sit down, eat, you need it." I sat opposite her, the steam from the scrambled eggs curling upwards. Maria started telling me about her plans for the day, something about a client meeting. Her voice, usually so clear and bright, sounded distant, muffled, like I was hearing it through a thick pane of glass or a concrete wall. I tried to focus, tried to smile, but as I looked at her, her morning smile bright and easy, it wavered. For a flicker, it wasn't her. Her features, they warped. Her skin was sallow, drawn tight over sharp bones. Her eyes, usually full of light, were sunken, vacant, staring past me into something awful. Her hair, so neatly tied back, seemed to hang in greasy, matted strands around a face too thin, too weary. And the familiar scent of her sunflower hand cream, the faint perfume that always clung to her after she got ready, it was gone, replaced by something thick, cloying, like damp earth and something dead, something rotting slowly. My gorge rose, a dry heave caught in my throat. "Maria, you okay?" I heard myself rasp, the words barely a whisper. My own voice sounded weak, alien. The image vanished as quickly as it had come. Maria blinked, her face again the familiar, vibrant one I knew. She was looking at me, her expression shifting from concern to something more like alarm. "Alex, what is it? Your face is absolutely white. You look sick." I shook my head, fighting down the nausea.
It was just indigestion, or tiredness. Had to be. No, I think I just feel a bit queasy, I mumbled, picking up a piece of toast. It felt like sawdust in my mouth. I couldn't swallow it. I chewed, tried to force it down, but the taste of that faint metallic something, that decay, it was still there, just beneath the surface of the normal breakfast. I pushed the plate away. Maria sighed softly, a sound that felt heavy with unspoken frustration. The rest of the morning at the office was a blur of fluorescent lights and meaningless chatter.
Every so often, the metallic tang, the smell of smoke, would waft through my cubicle, though no one else seemed to notice. I'd freeze, my hands clammy, heart hammering against my ribs, waiting for whatever came next. But it never did, not fully. Just these fleeting sensations, these ghostly echoes. During my lunch break, I found myself ignoring emails and instead clicking through various online stores. It started with simple things: extra canned goods, bottled water, a first aid kit, a slightly bigger military-grade first aid kit. My finger hovered over a listing for a portable water filter. Just normal emergency prep, I mumbled into my phone, my voice so low I almost didn't hear it myself. For, a hurricane or a blackout. We never had hurricanes in Ohio. Maria texted me, asking if I was feeling any better, if I was coming home for dinner. I typed back, just a bit under the weather. Maybe just going to grab some takeout. I couldn't face her at the dinner table. Not while I felt like this. Not while I kept seeing things. When I got home, the house was quiet. Maria was on the couch, watching the evening news. The anchorman, a polished, smiling man with perfect hair, was explaining something about rising gas prices. I watched him, and then it happened again. His face. It didn't distort like Maria's had, not exactly. It fractured, like fine china dropped from a height. 1,000 tiny cracks spiderwebbed across his forehead, his cheeks. And then a great gaping tear appeared across his mouth, stretching from ear to ear, revealing not teeth, but dark, empty space. He kept talking, his mouth moving, but no sound. Just a high-pitched, thin shriek of wind rushing past my ears. A sound like 1,000 voices whispering nothing, all at once. My whole body seized up. I lunged for the remote, fingers fumbling. The channel flipped, landing on a cartoon. A yellow sponge-like character laughed maniacally. Its laugh was loud, jarring, and, blessedly, normal. I stared at it, breathing hard, until the wind shrieking in my ears finally faded, replaced by the saccharine, artificial sounds of the cartoon. I didn't dare look back at the news channel. Not tonight. Not ever again, maybe. That night, I couldn't sleep. The pain in my shoulder, that dull throb, was still there. I kept touching it, rubbing it, trying to make sense of it. I got out of bed, careful not to wake Maria, and went to my study. The same study where I used to pay bills, read mundane reports. Now it felt like a command center. I started searching again. Not for canned goods this time. I typed in Home Security Systems. Then Survival Skills Basic. Then MRE's Bulk Purchase. The screen glowed, the endless stream of information, a strange comfort, a way to channel the rising panic. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Every click felt like a step deeper into something unavoidable. "Will come in handy," I whispered to the empty room, my throat tight. "It's all necessary." A cold shiver crawled down my spine. Eventually, all of it will be necessary. My eyes, wide and tired, were fixed on the screen.
scanning lists of gas masks, water purification tablets, and emergency shelters. It wasn't just a precaution anymore. It couldn't be. I stumbled into the bathroom hours later, my eyes gritty with sleep deprivation. I flipped on the light, the sudden glare making me wince. I splashed cold water on my face, then looked up at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked drawn, probably, too pale. But then, as my eyes drifted lower, I saw it. Just above my left nipple, a small, faint line. Muted pent against my skin, barely visible if you were looking for it. A scar. It wasn't angry or new, seemed old, really. But it wasn't from any surgery I'd had, no accident I could remember. My breath hitched. My right arm, the one that had been aching all morning, lifted. My fingertips brushed against the scar, felt the raised, uneven ridge of it. It was real. Not a mole, not a scratch I could remember. It was a scar. Small, faded, but unmistakable. The exact shape of the gash I'd taken in my dream, the one that had throbbed just hours ago. A phantom pain I'd tried to ignore, hoping it was just a bad night's sleep. "No way," I breathed, the words barely audible. My reflection stared back, eyes wide, disbelieving. It's not a dream. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead, ran down my temples.
The phantom ache in my shoulder suddenly intensified, a sharp, searing pain that made me gasp. The scar, the pain, the smells, this was real, this was happening. I don't know how much time passed. I just sat there, in the living room, surrounded by piles of books I'd ordered online. Field Medicine for Dummies, Primitive Survival Skills, How to Filter Water, even local topographical maps with what looked like old sewer line drawings. The morning sun was just starting to creep through the windows when Maria found me. She just stood there in the doorway, quiet. She hadn't expected me to still be up, I guessed, or maybe she had, after the way I'd been acting. She was dressed for work, her purse clutched tight in her hand. For a long moment she just looked at me, at the books, at the cluttered room. Then she walked over to the coffee table and laid a thin, official-looking document on top of a book about foraging for edible plants. The divorce papers. "Alex," she said, and her voice sounded so tired, like she'd been carrying a monumental weight for too long. I just can't do this anymore. You're slipping away from me, from us." I looked at her. Her face, usually so full of gentle understanding, was now etched with a deep, weary sorrow. And then, for an instant, it happened again. Just a flash. Her eyes, usually so soft, were hollowed out, staring at me with a profound, unblinking emptiness I recognized. It was the face of the woman from my dream, the one I had seen so many times, bruised and broken, huddled in the ruins, her gaze vacant, lost. Her lips moved, forming words I couldn't hear in the dream, but I knew what she was saying. A desperate plea, for help, for comfort. My heart clenched. A cold, hard knot formed in my chest. I knew then, with a terrible certainty. She would be one of them, one of the ones I couldn't save. Even now, especially now. "No," I mumbled, not to Maria, not really, to the ghost of her future in my head. "No, you can't leave me." Maria just stood there, watching me, her eyes clouded over with what looked like fear, or maybe pity. I couldn't tell the difference anymore.
Then she just turned around, slowly, and walked away. The front door clicked shut softly behind her. Not a slam, just a quiet, final click. The room was still. The books about survival, about enduring the end of the world, felt like silent, cruel witnesses. Her perfume, that faint sunflower scent, still lingered in the air, a ghost of the life we'd built, a mocking echo of what I had just lost. Everything was gone, just like that. I sat there, hunched over, the silence of the house pressing down on me. I didn't know how much time passed, maybe hours. The sun had moved, casting long shadows across the living room carpet. My gaze drifted to the kitchen. My eyes caught on something. A spot on the wall, tucked away in a corner near the old pantry door. A dark, jagged line. A crack. It wasn't new. I must have seen it 100 times, probably dismissed it as just an old house settling. But now it was different. It had a distinct shape, uneven, jagged, almost like a lightning bolt, though thinner. And it was exactly like a crack I had seen in my dream. The one on the wall of that crumbling concrete shelter where I'd hidden for weeks, scavenging for food, listening to the shrieks outside. I pushed myself up, my legs stiff, and walked slowly towards it. My finger traced the uneven line, the rough texture of the old plaster. Slowly, carefully. Then I pressed my palm flat against the wall. It was cold, colder than the rest of the wall. For a second, just a split second, I thought I saw something deeper in the darkness behind the plaster. A faint, anemic glow, like moonlight on a world without a sun. Just for a flicker, like looking into a keyhole that opened onto a vast, empty landscape dominated by black, jagged spires. I closed my eyes, squeezed them shut. My breath caught in my throat. When I opened them, that light was gone. It was just a crack again, a regular old crack in the wall. But I could hear it now, a whisper of wind, thin and dry, seeping out from the tiny fissure, a sound that didn't belong in this house, didn't belong in this world. It was the same hollow, desolate sound I had heard countless times in my sleep, rattling through the ruined cityscapes. The sound of oblivion approaching.
"Still there," I whispered. My voice cracked, almost a croak. My head fell back against the wall, against the rough plaster. "It's coming." The silence after Maria left was a weight, heavy. Not the quiet of a sleeping house, but the kind of stillness right after something loud breaks, or when a breath stops. I just sat there in the living room, surrounded by those books. Field medicine, survival, water filters. They felt less like precautions now, and more like a cruel joke, like they were laughing at me. The sun pushed through the front window, angled low, casting long, accusing shadows across the carpet. My eyes drifted to the kitchen, to that crack, the one by the pantry door. It wasn't just an old house settling, not anymore. I'd touched it, felt the cold, and I'd heard it, that thin, desolate whisper of wind, the same sound from my dream, from the ruined cityscapes. It was still there. It was always there. I pushed myself up. My legs felt stiff, like I'd just roused from a bad sleep, or maybe I'd been sitting for a year straight. I walked to the kitchen, slowly, just looked at the crack. It was thinner now, almost invisible if you didn't know it was there. But I knew exactly where it was. The house felt like a skin,
my skin, and it was shedding, tearing at the seams. Maria was gone. She didn't believe me. How could she? I wouldn't have believed me either if I hadn't lived it. 10 years. 10 years of dust, fear, and that smell. That metallic, burning, rotting smell. The smell of the new world. I spent the next few days in a fog. My body moved, but my mind felt like it was somewhere else, always just a step behind. I ate from the canned goods I'd stashed, drank bottled water. My phone, my laptop, they became extensions of my fortified thoughts. I double-checked the locks on every window and door, not just with the standard bolts, but with wooden planks I'd cut and braced myself, just like in the dream. The garage door was reinforced, the basement hatch. Every single entry point felt like a gaping wound I had to sew shut. One afternoon, I was huddled in my study, the curtains drawn, the only light from my laptop screen. I had a local topographical map up, cross-referencing it with notes from my dream journal about safe zones, water sources, potential hideouts. I zoomed in on a small, forested area just outside the city. It looked good. I tapped the screen with my finger. Then, an alert popped up on my news feed. It was a local weather report, but something was off. The meteorologist, a woman with a plastered-on smile, was pointing at a radar map. Far away, somewhere out west, in the mountains of Colorado, a tiny, pulsing red dot glowed. She chuckled, dismissed it as unusual atmospheric interference, said it was probably nothing. My breath caught. My fingers froze over the keyboard. My stomach gave a lurch. I zoomed in on the weather map. The dot wasn't static. It pulsed. A faint, sickening rhythm, like a heartbeat. "There it is," I whispered into the quiet room. A cold shiver ran up my spine. "It's starting." No, that's just static, right? God, I was losing it. I was so tired. I tried to rub my eyes, to blink it away, but my hands just clenched into fists, white-knuckled over the mouse. It had to be static, some weird glitch. But the image, the place, it felt so familiar. Like something dredged up from a memory I didn't know I had. I saw it, that small dot, glowing, expanding. A tear in the fabric of the sky. A door opening. I forced myself away from the screen. Needed to check the perimeter again. Outside, evening was settling in. The streetlights flickered on, one by one. Everything looked normal. So normal it hurt. It was a deception. I walked around the house, checking each secured window. My footsteps sounded too loud in the quiet. When I reached the back patio, behind the reinforced sliding glass door, I heard it. A low, droning hum. Like a truck idling just down the street, but deeper, more resonant. It pulsed, a long, drawn-out sound that seemed to vibrate in my chest cavity. I stopped, straining my ears. Nothing. No truck. The street was empty. The sound kept going, a deep, unsettling thrum. I turned my head, trying to pinpoint it. East? West? It felt everywhere. My ears started to ring, like pressure building. Then, for a split second, the houses across the street wavered. Just a slight blur, a shimmer, like heat haze, but there was no heat.
They seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly, then snapped back into place. My head swam. I blinked hard, shaking my head violently. "Just a plane," I mumbled, trying to clear the ringing in my ears. Or am I just imagining it? The hum faded. It was gone. But the unease lingered. a ghost of a vibration in my bones. I knew something was wrong. I could feel the pressure in the air, a kind of heaviness that had nothing to do with the weather. It was like living underwater, where every movement was a struggle and every sound was muffled. Back inside, I walked through the living room, making my rounds. The house was a fortress, yes, but it was also a tomb. My tomb. Then, from the corner of the room, near the small table by the front door, the old guest phone rang. My heart jumped into my throat. That phone, it hadn't worked in years. I'd cut all the lines months ago, just like all the other ones. Dead. No dial tone, no power. The ring was a shrill, jarring sound in the heavy silence. A sound that shouldn't be. I froze, my eyes wide. It rang twice, then stopped, just like that. I walked towards it, slowly. My legs felt like lead. As I got closer, I saw it. Just above the phone, on the wall, a new crack. Not like the old, faded one in the kitchen. This one was new, fresh. A thin, jagged line in the plaster. From it, a faint, pale blue wisp of smoke curled out, twisting in the air for a second, then vanishing. It smelled like ionized air, like ozone, metallic and sharp, but also something sweet underneath it. Daffodils, Maria's favorite. It turned my stomach. I backed away, grabbed the Mossberg from the hidden compartment in the wall, pumped a shell into the chamber. The click-clack of the action was loud, too loud. It echoed, a lonely sound in the hollow house. I stood there, gun raised, facing the wall. Facing the crack. Nothing. Just the faint smell of daffodils, and something wrong. I held my breath, listening. My ears strained, trying to pick out any sound. A shift, a creak, anything. And then it started. The daffodil smell in the room grew stronger for a second, cloyingly sweet. Then it curdled, turned, into that familiar stench of damp earth and something acrid, chemical, rotting. I almost choked. My skin crawled. From the crack, a shape began to emerge, a shimmer in the air, distorting the light from the small lamp in the corner. It grew, coalesced, tall, gaunt. It was vaguely man-shaped, yes, but not defined, like looking at a figure through thick, wavy glass. It had no face, just a smooth, indistinct surface, like a stone worn by centuries of wind. It stood there, completely motionless, looking at me or through me. I couldn't tell, but I felt its gaze. It was cold, so cold. My hand tightened on the shotgun. My knuckles were white. My whole body was screaming, screaming to run, to hide, to blast this thing into oblivion. But it just stood there, observant, unmoving. It was like it was waiting for me, to do something, to react. My finger twitched on the trigger. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was going to explode. The fear was a living thing, squirming in my gut. This was it. This was the source. The crack now pulsed with that faint blue light from within, reflecting off the indistinct figure. The things that had been whispers, memories, flashes, were here. They were in my house. The figure, silently, slowly, seemed to breathe out. A faint cloud of that pale blue smoke drifted from where a mouth should have been, spreading slowly through the room, making the air feel heavy. I couldn't take it anymore. I squeezed the trigger.
The shotgun roared, a deafening blast in the small room. The recoil slammed into my shoulder, the pain a familiar friend. The buckshot tore through the air, right where the figure was standing. It passed through, just passed through. Like it wasn't there at all, like I had fired into empty air. No sound of impact, no flesh, no bone, nothing. The pellets just slammed into the wall behind it, ripping through the plaster, leaving a cluster of ugly holes. The figure didn't flinch. It remained for another agonizing second, its featureless head tilted slightly. Then it slowly, almost lazily, began to recede. It shimmered, faded, and then vanished back into the wall, leaving only the new crack, slightly wider now, and the holes from my shotgun blast. I staggered back, tripped over the edge of the coffee table. My gun clattered to the floor.
What the fuck was that? What was that thing? You can't fight air. You can't fight a goddamn ghost that smells like Maria's flowers and rotten earth. It had looked at me. It knew. It knew. I scrambled to the fridge, yanked open the door, grabbed a bottle of water, chugged it down, the cold liquid burning my throat. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. The last thin barriers of my sanity felt like they were crumbling. There was no fighting this, no preparing for this. It wasn't just a disaster, it was a power. I needed to know I wasn't alone. I needed to hear another voice, a human voice. I stumbled to the small utility closet where I kept my prepped communication gear, pulled out an old military-grade shortwave radio, flipped the switch. The static hissed, loud and abrasive. I turned the dial, sweeping through the frequencies, desperate for anything, news, weather, music, anything. The static gave way to a jumble of voices, shouts, sirens. Not the usual police or ambulance sirens. These were different, longer, high-pitched, building in intensity. Emergency sirens, the ones from my dream. They howled in the distance. Then, amidst the chaos, a news anchor's voice broke through the static, rapid-fire, frantic. Unprecedented biological agent rapidly spreading, quarantines failing, please remain indoors, avoid all contact. His voice broke off into a choked gasp, more static. I kept tuning, another channel, more screams, gunshots. Someone was yelling about creatures. Overlapping reports, cities going dark, complete breakdown. And then, through a burst of overwhelming static, a voice, faint, cracked, a woman's voice. "Alex, you were right." My blood ran cold. Maria. "I'm sorry. They're here." Her voice was barely a whisper, thin and reedy, trying to fight through the noise. "They're looking at me." The static screamed. It swallowed her voice whole. A final high-pitched shriek, then nothing but the empty hiss of white noise. I lowered the radio, my hands numb. It was real, all of it. The dream, the warnings, the 10 years. It was happening. That's when the windows started to shake. The reinforced glass, thick and solid, suddenly vibrated. A deep rumble came from outside. A roar, not of an animal, but of something immense. Metal grinding on metal. The sound of something breaking, something big. Buildings falling. And the smell. Oh God, the smell. Acrid smoke, soot, burning plastic and rubber. A metallic, coppery tang that tasted like blood. And underneath it all, that earthy, sweet and sour stench of decay. The smell of death. It wasn't fading in and out now. It was here. It was real. From outside. From the world. I looked down at my hands. The calluses.
From years of gripping salvaged tools, prying open rusted doors, climbing rubble, digging in the dead earth. The ones from my dream, they were there, clearer than ever, hardened, ready. I had survived. I was a ghost of the future, trapped in a present that was now becoming the past. I walked to the front window, pressed my face close to the fortified glass. Darkness was coming. Not just night, but a deeper, heavier darkness. I couldn't see anything clearly, just the flickering orange glow of distant fires, reflecting off low-hanging clouds. The world was screaming now, moaning, howling. My right arm, the one that had ached for days, the phantom pain of an old wound. I raised it, running my fingertips over the small crescent-shaped scar just above my left nipple. It was healed, faded pink, but when I touched it, a wave of icy cold washed through my arm. Not the cold of the breaking world outside, but a cold from within me, a deep, bone-chilling cold that made my blood feel like it was trying to flow backward. I looked down at the scar. It was glowing. A faint, anemic blue light pulsed from it, mirroring the blue smoke from the crack. I looked towards the kitchen. The crack by the pantry door was smaller now, almost closed, but from its depths a faint red light shone. It pulsed, like a distant, malevolent eye, hidden just beyond the wall, watching. "You're not gone," I whispered, the words ragged. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a cold, hard knowledge. You're still here. The wailing outside grew louder, closer, the beginning of the end, just as I had known. But the fear that took root then, deep in my gut, wasn't about the monsters outside. It was about the cold light in my scar.
The red eye in the wall. The feeling that I wasn't merely a survivor. I was a channel, a conduit. And this wasn't the end of a cycle. It was just the very beginning.